The purpose of this meeting is an emergency meeting of the Sanford City Council to address the issues of the municipality, state, region, and provide organizational coordination and communication with the public in response to the current influx of asylum seekers needed assistance. This meeting is going to be a little different. This meeting will be conducted in person and via remote video and teleconference pursuant to MRS Section 403B2D and Section 6 of the Sanford City Council Rules and Procedures, as amended and adopted on May 3rd, 2022. Members of the public may join the meeting by phone by dialing 1-929-205-6099 using meeting ID 825-8144-9085 and password 851335 or via the link provided. Members of the public may also submit comments via the City of Sanford website at www.sanfordmaine.org under Government/City Council/Contact the Council. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me for a moment of silence. Roll call. Deputy Mayor Herlihy?
Present.
Councilor Stackpole is on Zoom, I assume?
I am.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
All right.
we can.
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Thank
could join us.
Present.
Thank you. Councilor Hanselman?
Present.
Councilor Martell?
Present.
Councilor Trench-Montagne?
Present.
Councilor Hitchcock?
Present.
And I'm Mayor Brink, and also present our city manager, Steve Buck, and executive assistant, Larissa Ricketts. I'm going to make a statement before we begin, and then I'm going to be turning the meeting over to our city manager, Steve Buck. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to our meeting. I'd also like to thank the members of our staff who have worked tirelessly over the last week to provide housing for many of the new families that have joined us last week. The second, I would like to thank the community members who have also stepped forward to help and to volunteer to do things. We live in a very welcoming, caring community of hardworking, kind, generous, and innovative people. Have been met with leaders in our community, plus have called organizations from the Portland area who have worked with the asylum seekers. We have learned a lot about what to do and what not to do. We are now ready to share our new knowledge with you so that we as a community can respond. And one of the things that we have learned is that there's one word we have to always keep remembering: long term. So always focus on that when we start to do stuff. As we have learned from Portland's experience, sometimes what helps on a day or a week really hurts in the long term. Our community has received very strong guidance from those who are experienced with housing issues faced by the asylum seekers. The efforts by individuals to secure housing or offer housing will likely worsen over time if individuals step forward to offer that housing. It interferes with the process. While it seems counterintuitive, to discourage private offers of short-term housing, such offers cause asylum seekers to leave secure housing in Portland to come here. It is also important for asylum seekers to connect to services in one city, not two. Most are already registered in Portland. Finally, we understand the frustration of Sanford residents who have or are experiencing homelessness and are underhoused. Increasing efforts of housing has and will remain a goal of the council. We, the council, are also focused on keeping the taxes low for the citizens of Sanford, as demonstrated in next year's budget of just over 2%. That is the lowest in our region. Our residents are our major concern. So I hope with tonight's presentation, we can join together as a united, caring community. Now, under new business, 23212-01, and an update from City Manager, the ongoing coordination of the municipality response to the influx of asylum seekers to Sanford, and cooperation with local, regional, state organizations to address the situation in an efficient and coordinated manner. Steve, I turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with a presentation this evening on the newly arriving asylum seekers. This is a new category of unhoused for our city. Prior to this, the unhoused population that we have predominantly been dealing with has been the comorbidity of drug addiction and mental health and or other circumstances that have presented them in a homeless situation. We've geared our mental health unit within the police department and other responses significantly in response to what we had experienced prior to this point in time of asylum seekers arriving on our doorstep. So I'm going to give you a summary of how we got here, where we're at now, and what we see coming in the future. I'm going to talk about services, housing, and assistance, and the city's actions to date and into the future. So we've experienced a large influx of asylum seekers. So who are these people? Over the past 2 weeks, Sanford has been impacted by a large number of asylum seekers in need of services, predominantly housing. An asylum seeker is a person who has left their country and is seeking protection from persecution and serious human rights violations in another country, but who hasn't yet been legally recognized as a refugee and is waiting to receive a decision on their asylum claim. So to date, all but 2 families that we've dealt with have produced their documentations from customs. They've been through the customs process. They're documented. They have filed for asylum, and they're waiting for a court date and a hearing. And therefore, under state law, they qualify for general assistance. And that's an important point. So why are they arriving in Sanford? I know more about that today than I knew yesterday and the day before. The initial arrivals indicated they were just off a plane arriving in Portland. They were greeted shortly thereafter and provided rides to Sanford, so we were their first and initial point of contact. So that was the first series. That was a very limited number. The larger number of arrivals indicated that they had left their current sheltered or housing circumstances and had electively engaged transportation to Sanford after hearing that better housing, i.e. hotel rooms, would be granted. Our further assessment indicates that there was an organized, reoccurring series of vehicles transporting families to Sanford to seek assistance. I can't emphasize that enough. I've learned today of the names of the individuals that were actively recruiting at the Portland Expo. We have that information now, and we'll drill down on that. I've also learned that there's a number of charitable and or faith-based organizations that have actively recruited, picked up asylum seekers, brought them here to our community, housed them temporarily. Those resources are running out, and now they're being turned out to the city to provide general assistance. And we'll talk about that further. As far as one of the quotes that rings resoundingly in my head is, "Don't let your help become a burden." I'm seeing that consistently in this situation. The help is becoming a burden. It's not coordinated. And I'll talk to you about that, the significant coordination efforts that are out there to allow the help to not become a burden, but to work in conjunction with the city in addressing this issue. From the end of April, approximately 10 days ago, through May 5th, 2023, we had over 25 families representing approximately 100 people, men, women, and children who had arrived. The average family unit is 4 to 5 to as many as 8 individuals. We are even seeing family units that were split. Half the family unit stayed in the housing options that they had, half the family unit came here seeking other options. Numbers increased steadily over that period, and as last Friday, we took in 12 families arriving on May 5th alone. From 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night, we processed 12 families and housed them all. The city has been unable at this point in time to find temporary housing options for other families that have arrived here, and approximately another 100 people that have arrived here. So hotels, it's not incumbent upon them to take our housing vouchers. We have 2 hotels that will, and they hit capacity last Friday. We're even placing family units outside of our community, which is difficult at best. As of today, we're still beyond capacity. There's no further capacity for hotel rooms or other housing options here in our community. The last numbers I knew from the school department that is as of May 4th of 2023, they had enrolled 23 students. I believe 23, or Matt, you might correct me, perhaps 24. That didn't count the 12 families we took in on that Friday, nor did it count any of the families that we've taken in as of the first of this week. So what assistance is the city providing, and why are we doing that? So pursuant to state law, Title 22, Chapter 1161, Municipal General Assistance, the General Assistance Program means a service administered by a municipality for the immediate aid of persons who are unable to provide the basic necessities essential to maintain themselves or their families. A General Assistance Program provides a specific amount and type of aid for defined needs during a limited period of time. We need to hold on to that limited period of time because it becomes very critical. 30 days from now, all the circumstances change dramatically. It is not intended to be a continuing, quote, grant in aid or categorical welfare program. This definition shall not in any way lessen the responsibility of each municipality to provide general assistance to a person each time that that person has need and is found to be otherwise eligible to receive general assistance. So the City of Sanford, as a political subdivision of the state of Maine, is mandated under this law to provide general assistance. There is no option to not provide that, and it's very stringent regulations that surround that. So I pulled several of the definitions that are pertinent to the conversation here today. Municipality of responsibility means the municipality which is liable for the support of eligible person at the time of application. The time of application, where they've made the application in the past, where they've made it for the first time, all comes into play for eligibility. General assistance offices, there should be a local office. There must be in each municipality a general assistance office or designated place where any person may apply for general assistance at regular, reasonable times designated by the municipal officers. So we have 1.5 individuals that are dedicated to the taking of applications for general assistance. We're open 40 hours a week, but nights, weekends, holidays, there's a 24-hour hotline that applies for emergency situations, and that's an important definition for what an emergency situation is. Also, pursuant to this, municipalities are required to provide for what's called basic necessities. That means food, potable water, clothing, shelter. Shelter is the most difficult part of this to fulfill. If you are a two-person household, both people working, you know that it's difficult to find a rent that you could afford or a house that you could ever afford to buy. Say nothing about somebody that's homeless, absent resources, the difficulties pile. Fuel, electricity, non-elective medical services as recommended by a physician, non-prescription drugs, telephone where is necessary for medical reasons, and any other commodity or service determined essential by the overseer in accordance with the municipality's ordinance and this chapter. City of Sanford has a municipal ordinance, I believe it's chapter 138, that mirrors the state's general assistance program. and that's how we administer the program. Basic necessities do not include security deposits for rental property except for emergency purposes. For the purpose of this subsection, emergency purposes means any situation in which no other permanent lodging is available unless a security deposit is made. Other important pieces of the chapter is 1A, direct cost. Direct cost means the total value of general assistance benefits paid out by a municipality that is in compliance with this chapter in the municipality's general assistance ordinance. So that direct cost is any of those elements that I put under basic necessities: food, clothing, shelter, diapers, medications, all of those sort of elements. The money that's the city puts into administering that program is not reimbursable by the state. Other cost, as we've allocated staff across departments to fill this huge influx, not reimbursable. By state rule, asylum seekers qualify for general assistance. In 2015, the legislature amended the Municipal General Assistance Statute, which is 22, Section 4301, by rulemaking to clarify that certain people would be eligible for the program if they were either lawfully present in the United States or pursuing a lawful process to apply for immigration relief. That's the asylum seekers. Before that period of time, there was always a question as to whether they paid, whether they were qualified or not, and if the municipality provided assistance under the general assistance program, was it reimbursable at the 70-30 split with the state. The 2015 rule change clarified that so that they are qualified. So the assistance is time limited and is in the form of vouchers used to purchase basic needs of food, medications, housing, and essentials from select vendors. The city has select vendors. So for example, the food voucher is issued to the Hannaford store in Sanford. That's the only place it can be used. So public transportation and or other means to get individuals to and from the Hannafords is an important part. Current state law reimburses the municipality 70% of the direct cost, which is defined, but not for the administrative services in rendering GA. There are countless bills that are before the legislature in this long session that is re-examining the cost structure as being a 90-10, where the state will pick that up. Earlier, a gentleman was asking me about the $230 million of new funds that the state is projecting to come into its coffers because the economy of the state is still doing reasonably well. It was not accounted for in the budgetary process. At the time of initial projection, one of the elements that I've been told is that the governor's office is looking at how to strengthen and reimburse the municipalities at 90% for general assistance as opposed to the 70-30 split. So again, the current status, we have approximately 25 families, and this was as of last Friday. The numbers went up today. I can't tell you what those numbers are. I don't even have the ability to communicate with our general assistance director. That office is completely overwhelmed in there. They have a backlog of appointments. They are completely overwhelmed. But we had about 25 families and approximately 100 asylum seekers comprised out of those families. As of that point in time, we have school-aged children that have been enrolled in our school districts. Appointments have been made, starting with the first arrivals, to file for weekly benefits on basic necessities. This is an important point. It's not once that they come here and fill an application out and you're done. It's every week. It's every 7 days. So the hotel vouchers are good for a 7-day period of time. The hotel could, at any point in time, say we're not going to rent that room any longer, or we're not going to rent any rooms at any point in time. And then you've got that scenario to deal with. So they come back in for the weekly benefit analysis, whereby they will be issued another housing voucher. If they continue to qualify, they'll be issued more food vouchers and other basic necessities based upon their assessment at that point in time. So it's, again, it's not a one-time application. It's a continuous and ongoing rolling piece. And this is the volume that our offices were not tasked with before. And I can tell you that they worked overtime and were here late nights with a volume pre-existing to this. This has become overwhelming. Housing is also, again, the weekly and emergency qualifications will be assessed if still needed at the end of the initial 30-day period. Here's my fear. They automatically qualify. If they qualify, there's a 30-day period for housing and basic necessities. I apologize, I have allergies here. After that point in time, typically a family may qualify for an additional 7 to 10 days of emergency service beyond that. What then? That's the big question that we're trying to manage at this point in time, because once they're here, they're in a system, there's a period of time that we need to address those needs. Current status, supporting staff has been provided to general assistants. We've moved staff from our clerk's office. We have a full-time director and a part-time general assistant's position. We've moved staff from the clerk's office there. Police department has been instrumental in helping us control our situation of taking people in the influx. I can't say enough for the staff response here last Friday. The office was actually closed last Friday, right? And we were presented with 12 families. Do the math at 5 to 8 apiece. There's the math. We had a lot going on here that day. Staff came in voluntarily and was coming in, pulling weight. Police department was delivering, York County Community Action was delivering people. We had a system going here that I believe was second to none. Our other departments have provided support staff, logistics, transports, assessments, and essential services during the highest influx periods. I can't emphasize this enough. General assistance has hit capacity of all available sheltering options of hotels and shelters within Sanford, and our applicants must now identify a housing option at this time to ensure further issuance of housing vouchers. So they're now going to be self-directed. They need to identify a housing option. If there is a housing option, we can then see if we qualify for a voucher. Next point, GA has just now begun cross-checking as applicants are indicating that they have left other housing options electively to pursue benefits here in Sanford. That is not an insignificant point when you look at the qualifications under general assistance. If you leave housing options voluntarily, you are disqualified. So that's being examined.
They had housing?
Not taking questions at this point in time. I'm going to finish.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. All right, so City is receiving a significant and coordinated response from our partnering agencies to aid our general assistance program. I can't emphasize enough the response that we've had from York County Community Action, Housing Authority, the School Department, Sanford Police, Fire, EMS, our clerk's office, the Finance Department. York County has been with us on the transportation services. They provided their economic and cultural services, and they are providing agency response coordination that is second to none. I want to thank them very much for that. Sanford Housing Authority has been in here with resources and staff. Nassau Healthcare Center, York County Shelter Program, Maine Immigrants' Rights. Their staff has been speaking with us extensively by phone conference. The value of that it's been invaluable to give us the perspective on how to deal with the situation that we're handling. And we've had a number of charitable and faith-based organizations, and I'll talk about that coordination here later in the presentation. So we had a coordination meeting that was held here in the city departments on Monday, as well as some of our regional partners. The week before that, on May 4th, there was a regional service provider meeting was conducted with York County Community Action as the facilitator, and that forum will continue on a weekly basis now. So every Thursday at 10 o'clock we'll be in that, and there'll be a coordination of facilities, and providers, and other services. So the continued response to coordination will continue within the city departments as well. So organization of charitable, faith-based, and individual responses. This is one of the most difficult things, right? City manager, I don't get to control all of these entities, but I'm asking for your help in coordinating them. So based upon extensive experience from our regional partners on earlier responses, donations of goods, services, and volunteer hours should be directed to our partnering agencies, emphasis on partnering agencies. That's where, if you want to donate, if that's where you want to give funds, food, specific items, such as the corner cupboard, beloved, and we have a list that I'll talk to you about later tonight. We have a list here that's ready for distribution. I'll give you a link to that. It's posted on the city's website. If you go to the city's website on the homepage, simply scroll down. There's latest news and calendar events. The lead box right there is, you click that box, and it'll take you to those community resources where you can give donations and such. So the coordination of donated resources reduces waste and better addresses individual needs. There's actually people out there assessing individual needs. And that's what I've prided our community on when it comes to homelessness before this. We were big enough to muster the resources, but small enough to know the individuals. So we could drill down on the individual needs, right? And we're trying to get to that point with the situation that we're at currently. So agencies are working with the asylum seekers on individual needs and can facilitate. Emphasis on they can facilitate. Please don't take it upon yourself to make a self-assessment and provide goods, services, or otherwise that's not a part of the coordinated response. So what will the public see? So outside of the public transit system being utilized by the asylum seekers, people should expect to see a large number of pedestrians, especially in areas less frequently walked, as these people walk as their known means of obtaining goods and services. The distances that they will walk to get goods and services is normal for them. It might seem like a long walk for us. That's how they've transported themselves from their countries all the way across the seas to here. They've walked to all of those facilities to get those elements. Transportation information for those that are being housed here in Sanford has been provided by York County Community Action in either French or Portuguese, which are the languages they predominantly can get by with. Lingala is the native language for a lot, but the Portuguese seems to work. They will be in our grocery stores and other stores obtaining food and necessities. They may be in our medical facilities as well, attending to the needs, no different than anyone else. And students will be presenting in our schools. So looking at next steps, I have a phone conference, Teams meeting with my team, internal team, tomorrow with the Department of Health and Human Services on the General Assistance Program, changes that need to be made, accommodations that need to be made, and asking for assistance, which I know they've not granted anywhere else yet, but the inquiry will be out there. We're going to be discussing maintaining the benefits for general assistant recipients and for those that have already been processed. I'm comfortable in standing before you tonight and saying to you that I told them today we're tapped. We're out. We don't get to stop the program, but we have hit capacities that our staff can no longer keep up with. We've been overrun. And the organized effort continues to bring vans and buses of people here. So, we're now in the process. We just started tomorrow. They'll take in the first of the applicants that we have. We'll start that weekly processing now. Those people are scheduled in. When they're given their first application, they had their next response date, and a time and appointment was given to them at the first time of application. They're already scheduled in. We'll take care of their needs. I haven't talked with our superintendent. I have not had the time to talk with you, Matt, as far as when the students are starting in school. Continue to look for assistance to find housing options. I received today an examination of the migrant busing toolkit for receiving cities provided by the Biden administration. Direct quote. When you read down through that, I was rather horrified. it pushes to the NGOs, non-governmental organizations. It pushes to the NGOs. That's the directive. Get them in the hands of the NGOs as rapidly as possible is my interpretation from reading that document today. We have weekly coordination meetings with our community partners, and we're seeking a federal response to the current border crossing numbers. On Thursday, Title 42 ends. We know that CBP is processing 8,000 appropriate applicants a day now. That number is expected to double come Thursday. So the influx we're seeing now, processing 8,000 a day, double that, and what does that look like for us? So again, to the coordination of donations and community efforts, to effectively assist the asylum seekers staying in Sanford community, please support the efforts of the existing organizations that are experienced in helping the folks in our community access food, household goods, personal items, and clothing. The asylum seekers will be connected with these organizations to meet their needs. So I have a link in here, donation channels for asylum seekers. That links you to the city's webpage. And again, on the front home page, scroll down. It's just below the pictures there. There's a large header that says donation channels for asylum seekers. Click that. There's a comprehensive listing in there as to where you can give for food, clothing, medical necessities, and others. Year to date. So our general assistance program, again, I indicated that it's a 70-30 split on direct cost only. So in our municipal budget, we have historically, based upon needs, and this includes the uptick during COVID and everything else, we budgeted $155,000 for non-contract services. That is the amount of money that we would expect to expend on direct cost for our 30% share under general assistance. Year to date, we've hit $483,724. And there's 8 weeks remaining in the fiscal year. So our expenses have exceeded budget by $328,000. Year to date on revenues, we've collected $247,437 from the state for reimbursement. We budgeted $108,000. That is the blend, the 70-30 blend. State reimbursement is pending for February and March. We've not received yet those from the state, and we'll continue to file through year end. We did receive an additional $110,000 for COVID-related housing. There was an extended housing period in there. Those monies are separate from this line item and were expended for those resources. Questions? I hope that explains why we're in the situation that we're at. We're legally mandated to provide general assistance, whether you agree or disagree with the asylum seeker status. That is not our choice. We're a political subdivision of the state. They make the laws, we administer them, and we are not going to go out of compliance.
To make it clear, we're going to take questions from the council first. All right, because this is all new to many of us also. So are there, Ann, you had a question, then Pete? Ann?
Thank you, Mayor. Two initial questions, Steve. One, first, just a point of clarification so that folks understand. Our GA budget is over budget. However, it was over budget prior to asylum seekers arriving in our community, but the projected numbers would worsen, presumably, with this higher level of service we're experiencing. So I just want to be clear on that piece. And then from a question standpoint, can you share what it means, or do we know at this point what it means for folks that left housing in Portland, came here, were processed, received housing vouchers, and are currently housed in our community once we realize that's taken place? Or is that still details we're sorting out?
So I'm going to be very, very cautious to not say Portland, right? So my earlier reference, they left their housing options that they had. So when you voluntarily leave services that have been rendered that were taking care of your needs, you are disqualified. A difficulty that we have as a state is the state does not allow for the maintenance of a statewide database of who's receiving services, where they received them, and the timing on that. So our GA directors have to communicate community to community to do the cross-checks. So we've now obtained cross-check lists from multiple sources, which just imagine. So last Friday when I'm assisting doing intake, you have a number of foreign nationals, cannot speak English, writing their documentation work out, name, date of birth, head of household, all of that sort of deal. Our general assistance director has to go down through all of those lists and cross-check that manually. That's something that's a simple fix in the state of Maine, because the predominance of communities use the same program. The database exists, but they don't allow us to share it.
I guess my question is more specifically, once we determine that there's been a duplication of services between a community and our community, do we then they're no longer eligible for continued vouchers? Is that a correct statement?
That's correct. They have to go back to their community of origin and seek those services.
And are we finding a large percentage of them have already registered in Portland? Or
similar community. Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So we were in this room yesterday afternoon, late in the afternoon. We had a Portuguese and a French interpreter, the same individual. We're so deficient as Americans, right? We speak one language, but so the gentleman was fluent in several languages, but he was interpreting for us. And when we asked, had they received general assistance in another community, or were they housed in another shelter program before they came to Sanford? All hands went up. All hands went up. So that's part of the supporting information that we asked, how they got here. Well, we were told there was something better, is the loose interpretation of that, and they were solicited and brought here.
By who?
Yeah.
Can I ask that question?
Well, Pete's
Or
next.
Pete's next? Oh, okay. So I'd be interested, actually, I'm very interested in knowing what organizations moving people around from locations where they already have assistance to Sanford, where we've, I think, fairly clearly indicated that we don't have additional housing for more people, and they keep busing them in.
And that information was communicated last week to those housing options that were pre-existing, where the individuals were. The fact that Sanford was out of housing options was communicated in those shelters. I verified that. We've had great cooperation from all other entities that are in the same situation. So that was well communicated. Again, I have some names now. I'm going to do some further work on that and identify what organization or organizations they were associated with. There are other groups that have brought individuals or are seeking to bring more individuals here and set up temporary shelters.
Pete?
Could you clarify the difference between Portland as a sanctuary city and Sanford that is not a sanctuary city that was voted in? I've been asked a lot of questions over the 9 days since this meeting, and this is one of the biggest ones. People are worried about their life savings, their investments in property and/or businesses, or both. And 9 days has been a long time to not have any communication to council. And could you clarify at least that right away, and then I'll come up with other questions as this plays out. Thank you.
I'd like to clarify something. There has been communication over the last 9 days, and I have specifically emailed repeatedly and text repeatedly the council, almost on a daily, almost daily. And several of us who have been working in this from the beginning have met repeatedly with Steve and the staff. So there has been communication. This is the first meeting that all of us are meeting together. And the reason is a lot of this communication we didn't get until yesterday. So that's why we're meeting today, because now we've got more information, accurate information, and not just guessing. But I guess your real question that we haven't answered yet is sanctuary cities. And do you know the definition of that and why?
I'm not going to get into the, no, I don't know
I
the
don't-
definition of that. Some cities have declared themselves a sanctuary city, thereby openly embracing people to traverse there, to receive services. Our city has not made that type of a declaration. What my responsibility is, and you have not seen much communication from me, because when I get home 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm done. I'm done, right? I'm burnt. But in that regard is I'm ensuring that our city is staying within the letter of the law for the general assistance program. We have to provide that service. Whether we have the resources, I was counseled today through DHHS, well, you're just going to have to find some temporary staff, you're going to find some contract services. I don't believe that's the full intent of the law, that if a city is so overwhelmed that with multiple full-time personnel, that when van loads of people are dropped at our doorstep day and night, that we have to respond to that in a 24-hour period. That's difficult. So that's the purpose of the meeting tomorrow, is discuss that with DHHS.
And one of the people that we've heard a lot of information from, actually two, Mafalo and Charlie are both online, and they help asylum seekers a lot. And a lot of the information that we are now following is through them, because they constantly told us, do not go above your capacity. And we have to be very careful that we don't go above our capacity, and which is one of the reasons why we've got these lists to give you, that if you want to donate or to help, you go through these organizations, because they individually have capacity for different items, like somebody doing food, somebody doing clothing. Let's make it very clear. How many of you think there are an abundance of apartments in Sanford? There just aren't. We have people who are still looking for apartments. We've just hired a brand-new fire chief who's looking for a home. Still has not found one, and he's been here for a while. So we do not have housing here in Sanford. And I do know that, as Steve Buck mentioned, that a lot of the people who came down here to register already had a place to live in Portland, and they came here. So that was very discouraging. And I don't know, Steve, is now a good time to hear from any of these two that gave us tremendous advice?
So you can if they desire to speak during this public forum. Again, we know that the census numbers are going back up because individuals have been unable to find housing here, and they've returned back to those sheltering options, as has been verified.
Thank you.
So I bring that up because we've had multiple responses. So as a city, we're getting two responses right now. There's an anger response. People are angry that the asylum seekers are here. That's my interpretation. They're angry that there's an expenditure of resources, my interpretation. But I'm taking the angry calls, so that's my interpretation. Yep. Other people are angry that the city's not doing enough. I can't accept that. We are doing everything within our physical capacity to meet the needs and meet the letter of the law, right? And then there are individuals that are taking it upon themselves to do actions. People that are housing on a temporary basis, bringing them here, housing on a temporary basis. I ran out of resources today. Now what? Well, I can't sustain that. Yes, you can't sustain that. You created an unsustainable situation, and now that it's broke, you're just doing this, right?
Thank you. Nate?
Thank you, Mayor. There are many other people I could thank, and I'm sure we will over the course of this time. My question is that, given that seeking asylum is a federal process, have we heard anything from our state and federal representatives about this? Have we had a chance to communicate with them? And have they been able to direct us to any resources specifically for this, aside from general assistance?
Talking with those communities, again, earlier this afternoon, there is no federal or other state assistance coming our direction, right? Some of the largest communities have seen some limited FEMA money that help them in the sheltering situations. I was given the understanding earlier today that CBP, Border Patrol and Protection, is going to try to free up some resources to put that out for some limiting sheltering operations. But again, that would be on a 30-day basis, and then shelter them for 30 days, and then what, right? So it delays the impact. Other communications at the state level, the predominance of the work that I'm aware of, because I'm part of a lot of advocacy in this regard, is it's about getting 90% reimbursement for the general assistance program as opposed to the 70% that we receive now. So that would be a huge piece. I believe the state resources are there. I was told through one of those meetings that the governor's supplemental budget that's forthcoming, knowing that $230 million is projected to be there now. One of those adjustments that I believe the governor will be asking for is to fund that 90%. Right. So there's that piece. At the federal level, I'm aware that Senator Collins and Senator King are co-sponsors on a bill in the Senate. I don't have that pulled up here now, so I'm not going to be able to quote the title appropriately. But it seeks to address the asylum seeker's ability to go to work within after a 30-day period, as opposed to the 180 days now. That could be a huge element whereby we know there's work available. It won't fix the housing piece. Remember when we talk about economic development and the such, housing seems to be the key to almost everything. So even though they would be able to go to work, they likely wouldn't be able to find housing that they could afford. So those are the pieces that I'm aware of.
Ann?
I just wanted to speak for a moment about the folks that are upset about the perception that we haven't done enough as a community. And one, I'm heartened by people's compassion and kindness, and I think the mayor spoke to what a great community we are in that sense earlier. It's unfortunate that because of the timing of the majority of the folks arriving, the city was closed, right, Friday through Sunday, and so it limited some of our ability to communicate what we were doing and what partner agencies in our community were accomplishing. And I think it took us some conversations, especially with the Maine Immigrants Coalition, to really understand that at times providing help, and Steve tried to say this, and I'm not going to say it well, but at times providing help is in fact not helpful. And that's, for somebody like myself and many of you in the room and watching, that's a really, really hard thing to get our hands around and make feel tangible, because it's innate in many of us to help, right? But there are times when that help takes people out of a structure and out of a process that actually hurts them in the long term. And when people leave existing shelters for new shelters in different communities, it's my understanding now that they may lose out. Their beds may be gone where they were previously, and they may lose out on vouchers here. So they're in a worse situation. And that's really unfortunate. And if they don't go through that process, right, and they're dealing with individual housing, again, people being kind, it's not being communicated to them that if they move forward with us inappropriately, they're losing a spot somewhere else. So we just need to be really careful to use the proper channels and structures that are in place. Donations to individuals that are trying to help, can get dicey, unfortunately. So I really recommend looking at donations being focused to existing agencies that have always been doing great work in our community and will continue to do so. And the last thing I want to say from a personal perspective is that I understand what these asylum seekers are doing. If my family, if I was a mother of some of these kiddos and I was seeking asylum and I was in a situation of 300 people in an expo and I heard I might be able to go somewhere where there was a hotel, I get it. I would probably try it myself. But the unfortunate thing is that we're at capacity. And I just want to reiterate that we need to help within specific parameters and through specific organizations. So thank you.
Well, and I'd also like to add to your statement that it takes them out of the queue. They could be number 50 to get something, and now they're not number 50, they're back to the beginning, and they could be number 300. So they've already worked through the process, and they're almost there, and then it gets taken away. So meaning well, we need to be very careful that we aren't really hurting them. Bob, do you have a question or statement?
Yeah, well, for both, I guess. First of all, because I'm not on site here, I just want to say thank you to everybody involved. That includes my fellow council members for the hard work that they've been putting in, working to try to resolve this crisis situation. And also count me among the many in this community that would like to see this situation resolved in a successful way. I know that becomes increasingly difficult, but it's very difficult, I understand, and frustrating. Apologize to my constituents here. I've been ill. I've had a bad case of the flu. I'm upright, but I'm still not really on my feet. So I am out of the loop. So my observation immediately here, listening to you people speak, is the amount of frustration that's around the table. Let's take a step back here, and if mistakes were made, let's put them behind us. And let's see if we can continue to do, as we've been doing, the best for everyone involved. My question is, and I think this is probably to Steve fairly quickly, how unique is this situation within you could pick Southern Maine or Maine itself. Is this something that happens frequently, or is this something that's way off the charts? Or maybe you just don't know.
So my first observation is it's our turn at this point in time. Other sister cities have been hit significantly with this kind of an impact. It's just our scenarios are slightly different in that there's been, the private transport of individuals here in large numbers beyond our ability to deal with from a capacity perspective that has been the most devastating impact to us. Had that not have happened, we likely could have kept far better pace with what was coming to us in a more natural sense. But it was that concerted delivery of van load after van load after van load. When people were pulling into the parking lot and inquired, "Oh, I'm from DoorDash," and 10 people get out of the van and they drive off, right? Who paid?
And
right?
so, and I hear what you're saying in terms of, kind of it's our turn, and rightly so, in a sense that I guess communities need to take their turn on a statewide basis. But also, my understanding that this whole process for us, for Sanford, was kind of driven by the rumor mill that somehow a rumor got started in Portland that there were better facilities or the possibility of a better situation if they came to Sanford, and that's began the process of these individuals coming by the van load to Sanford. I'm just trying to get my head around it. Is that the general perception? Not long term, but how it began.
Information that I received today was that there are 2 named individuals that were actively recruiting and encouraging people to come to Sanford.
Okay,
we
can leave it at that. We can leave it at that, Steve. Okay, thank you, and thank you for the time, Mayor.
Any other council have a question?
Right here.
Oh, more?
First of all, I think it's a little cruel to recruit people to come somewhere where there is no good housing and from a stable situation. It's really mean. So I've got a question. So I've accepted GA as a landlord in the past for existing tenants, and so I'm a known landlord in town. Usually they've been with me. I don't take GA if they're just moving in because it's not stable. So what would be considered if it's not a regular landlord, are there other situations for people looking for housing to potentially get a GA voucher? And obviously, the hotels only are temporary, but what would be appropriate housing opportunities? Is it just apartments and houses? Are there other opportunities for housing that a GA voucher would be granted?
So I'm not qualified enough in that regard to tell you the specifics beyond when we know that there's readily available, and so the GA office calls each morning, gets an inventory of what's available for rooms at the 2 hotels that will take the vouchers. That's the options, as well as what the capacity is at the shelter, right? The York County shelter. So we've tapped out on all of those. Beyond that, pursuant to the law, it is self-directed. They're instructed to, if they find housing options, we will put funding towards that if it qualifies, but they are then self-directed.
So, just as an example, say you're in a single-family house, you have a room. Does the entire budget of that house come into play for general assistance?
I don't know. I don't know what would qualify
Okay.
there.
Because I'm fearful that some people might consider taking someone into their home and then they'll get a general assistance and, supplement some income that, those are obviously not strong situations. Those are very temporary and, it's a very difficult decision to consider doing that. And GA might not even qualify that. And so I think that sort of an answer would be interesting. I don't know if there's anybody, I'm assuming Mr.
My director would know the answer to that, yes.
I think the hard part of that scenario is if you've allowed a family, you've taken a family into your home and you've embraced them, even if you do get assistance, it's a 5-week period, about a 30-day, and then what do you do at the end of that, especially if your family can't afford to keep housing another family or feeding them, and then they're back on, how are you as a family going to tell them they now have to leave? I could not do it. I think that would be very difficult. And then you've cut off all the resources and they start back again, back into the system again. And so they've lost all that time in getting the needs, things that they need. So you've actually hurt that family. You didn't really help. So just be careful we're not doing stuff to make ourselves feel good. We have to do stuff that truly helps these families. They're human beings. And I just can't imagine somebody carting them from Portland down to here and thinking that was an okay thing to do without checking to see if we had the resources. And probably knowing we didn't have the resources. So shame on you, whoever those people are who are doing it. I imagine maybe you thought you were doing good. So that's why we need to be very careful. And that's how, as a city, we couldn't come to you last week because we got the experts to help us put our heads on straight. So we were making some wise decisions instead of just from the heart. So any other questions from the council? Hold on a second. Yes.
So, yeah, I'd like to second some of those comments. This is essentially human trafficking, and any decent human being wouldn't drop off an animal where it wasn't able to obtain basic needs, let alone people. So this is a horrific situation that someone has put these people in. I do have a question for Steve. You had indicated that a significant number of the people that had come here had left shelters and would be disqualified. So does that mean that some of the additional people that it appears as though there's some people that are here still waiting for shelters, would those open up for those additional people? Or would the people that have been disqualified have to move back to Portland? Or what's the plan there? Or do we have one?
So I don't want to create any misconception. There is no shelter in Sanford. There's private hotel rooms that will accept a voucher, right? So York County has a shelter program that, absent this influx of people, is full at capacity all of the time. Right? So we were able to place last week a family of 8 there to keep them together as a unit. And I thank them for the ability to do that placement. So shelter's full. limited number of hotel rooms that we have available, but beyond that, there is no other housing options here.
So I guess maybe to clarify, are the people that are in the hotel rooms, have they been vetted that they didn't leave something in Portland?
That's the next step in the process.
Okay, so after the 7 days, they might not be eligible to stay there after the
There's a
7
high
days.
propensity of that, yes.
Okay.
High potential, yes.
And do we have a rough percentage?
No,
No. Okay, thank you.
no. But on a Friday afternoon between 4 and 10 p.m., with upwards of 100 people staring at you, needing someplace to be housed, that wasn't the primary concern.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My fellow Chatham, would you mind speaking with us?
Yes, sure.
Well, first I'd like to introduce you because I first saw you on television last weekend getting an award for a humanitarian award for dealing with asylum seekers. So thank you for all the work that you've done in the state of Maine by helping that population.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. And I'm also joined here by Charlie Govan, our Resettlement and Integration Manager. The last, week has been, I'm, trying to catch a breath. It's, I'm sitting in my office and I got a call from somebody in downtown Sanford, and they said, I just found a family that was dropped off by a car. They just saw a car drive by and leave a family of 5. And when they were trying to figure out, look at their phones, she approached them and found out that they couldn't speak English. So she got a friend of hers who spoke some French, I think with Haitian Creole French, and they found out that they were looking for the General Assistance Office. And so they just guided them to the office. And when they got there, they learned that there were 2 other families that had come. And so that phone call, on Wednesday last week, fast forward to where we are, took us into what has happened in other cities. We've seen families move in South Portland. We've seen families that have moved in Brunswick 2019, and then this current year, in Freeport. And so having that experience, and then also working, very closely in Portland, Expo of 2019, and then the hotels, during COVID, we've learned, how to support and how to respond. And so when we started supporting the city as well as the providers, was basically looking at, what has worked and what hasn't worked, and what are we learning in terms of how to provide support. And so what you've heard today in the presentation was our intent to guide the city so that, first of all, they pace themselves as people are arriving in their town. And word went round. We were also trying to figure out who told whom. But to things what somebody mentioned about, if you hear of a space where they're giving bread here, and your child or your family is starving, you're gonna go up and go and look for that opportunity as well. And so that is what you've heard in terms of people coming. Yes, we've also heard about people organizing other people, bringing folks, driving them there. Everybody just trying to get what they've heard is available, to a point of where the town and there's reached capacity, there are no more rooms. That information is also being relayed back as we hear that, as we've been in meetings with the town. And I could not thank enough the city of Sanford and how, especially the general assistants, without experience, they stepped in and really were supporting folks and giving people information to a point of where, when the rooms were filled, they were doing what the law says. And we are so grateful for that support. And then YCCA as well, they brought in all their systems, transportation, their culture broker. And fortunately, also, we had some experience when the city of Portland housed families in Old Orchard Beach. Most of us had been convening, had known how to support, how to bring our systems to support those families. And so we used that same experience to move, Sanford in a place where they don't overwhelm themselves. They are pacing themselves. And so we're so grateful for the partnership, but we know it's very challenging. And so we're here to support, but we're also here to give guidance so that this town, we know the state, we've been advocating for a statewide, coordination that would have really helped us figure out who are they, where are they from? And so we're hoping that, those systems can work, or we can use Sanford as that example to say, this is exactly why we need a statewide, database so that towns can know this one is being saved by this town and figure out without duplicating efforts and also a waste of resources. So I want to just emphasize the need to please don't do something outside from the systems, because your help will, to our point, let not your help be a burden, to the systems who are experienced, but who also know, especially now, to say, this funding is going to run out here. You may tap into this other funding, you may tap into this other organization, but we are hoping that, together we can do something that can help the city as well as help the asylum seekers. We also know that most asylum seekers still have to learn what the system is. So as they come into your office, into your building, please teach them what the system, what that system can provide, and then don't just go above and beyond to do something that your system doesn't, because then you hurt the other system that is experienced in doing that. And I'll let Charlie here chime in, but thank you so much, and we're hoping that you will be able to, we'll be able to support these families and support the municipality as well.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate what you've done for us over the last week. So thank you. I appreciate it. Charlie, did you have anything you wanted to add? Hi, Charlie. Are you on mute? Can you unmute? No.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that.
There we go.
I was clicking on mute and it said that the host is allowing
And
people to
Charlie,
unmute
would you tell
themselves,
them who you work for and what you do?
Yes, so you just heard from my boss. I'm also at the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition, and my title is the Resettlement and Integration Manager here. Now, just as a little bit of backdrop, when I took this position in November, it was to coordinate, resources, systems, providers among different municipalities, and try to get buy-in from the state in that effort. Fast forward to the beginning of March, and we at Merck had applied for state funding to open our own shelter for 77 individuals here in Portland, which I don't know if some of you may have heard about it in the news. It's being operated out of the Salvation Army and the YMCA here in Portland. So that just goes to show you, I guess, the bigger picture that, the landscape against which we're operating here. What was being called an emergency solution 6 months ago is now sort of standard operating procedure, it feels like sometimes. So that's just a little bit of backdrop. But I think most of all, what I wanted to do was just to echo what Mufalo had said. I have been, and my colleagues who have been a party to these meetings as well, have been really, really impressed by the seriousness and the measured approach that municipal officials in Sanford have been taking, as well as community partners and providers. It feels a lot of the time like we are asking, people to do more, to step up, to show their support. And, in Sanford, we've almost had to say, do less, because as I've heard, so I can't see everyone's faces. You're all on a very small screen, so I can't tell who's talking. But as I heard someone say, you know, your hearts want to do one thing, and you have to wait for long enough to listen to your head. And so I guess, you know, the commitment and commitment to being welcoming has not eclipsed, you know, the measured approach that I mentioned. A lot of the time, you know, yeah, like I think it was seen over the weekend, you know, you see people, and we might make assumptions about them having no resources or being helpless, and they might, you know, present that same picture to you as well out of a desire for, you know, support. And it is just, it's important for so many reasons not to be a martyr when it comes to this kind of work, right? You have to stay, you know, when we say stay in your lane, it's not like sit down and let us at Merck explain to you what to do. It's do enough so that next week, if this happens again, you'll be able to do it again. Next month, you know, the same thing. Because if you know, just taking the example of buying someone a hotel room, right? You do that, and, you know, I understand that people are coming from a good place when they do that, but where are you next week? Where are you in 3 days when that person has to move out and has nowhere to go? They're in the same place. The family is in the same place, and you're off feeling good about yourself somewhere. So there is a real need to check oneself when the sort of savior instinct kicks in. And as I said, I've just been so impressed by the ability of everyone I've been in meetings with in Sanford to do that. I don't want to go on too long. You know, just by running our own shelter here, which has been a project that I've been responsible for mainly, you know, we have an insight into what that looks like. We're not working so much directly in the Portland Expo, but we have our own shelter of just under a third of the size. It is not, you know, sleeping on a gym floor with 77 other people is not, it's not a situation that anyone, you know, should be forced to live in for a long time, right? And I heard someone earlier say that they can relate to the instinct to try to find something better, and so can I, of course. But part of working within these systems that we're talking about, and, you know, Mufalo said it, you know, really well, is to educate people on what can be offered. You know, I think everyone who has grown up in Maine or in the United States knows that sometimes, you know, what public assistance means is not enough or uncomfortable. And, you know, there's all kinds of reasons why that is, be it, you know, limitations or just the desire to not make people sort of comfortable on public assistance. But I guess where I'm going with that is just that, yes, these people are in desperate situations. They are coming from desperate situations. There's no denying that, and there is no silver bullet solution, if you will. But we all just need to work together to, you know, to use what's available and not try to make exceptions and, you know, be constantly operating in like emergency contingency plans, because that really just will burn everyone out, and no one will succeed as a result. And I think that's all
Thank
I
you
have to
very
say.
much. I appreciate that. Do any of the councilors have any other questions? Pete?
Yeah, before it goes to public comments, please remember that my father came over and learned how to speak English in the 2nd grade. So please remember that this could be any one of our surviving families. And please listen, we could be in an attack, and these could be our surviving family members going to another country. We do have to have compassion. I understand the financial and why people are here, and understand the ramifications about what's playing out. So just please keep that in your mind when you hit your comments, okay? I'm trying to save you ahead of time. Thank you.
So in case you're curious, Pete, there's a book called 2 a.m. in Little America. That is exactly about that situation. I just read it this year.
Anyone else with anything? Ann?
I just want to, there's one topic that might bubble up in community input if we're doing that. But one of the kind of threads that I kept seeing on social media relative to us, the community, the city council even being named, not doing enough, is that we didn't open Memorial Gym as a shelter location. And I think Charlie really touched upon the fact that as a city, we have to provide the resources within our kind of normal operating procedures. And if we create a contingency or emergency plan or reaction, that's something we'd have to be prepared to continue potentially indefinitely, right? And it would really tap out already tapped out resources, staffing, use of facilities that aren't even prepared for that kind of use. But I don't know, Steve, if you want to speak to at all the fact that using Memorial Gym as a shelter in this case wouldn't really be a positive move for.
Yeah, that's exactly what Charlie was saying earlier. They opened something up on a temporary basis. It's now the landscape. It's not going away. It's there indefinitely. So, and again, we've been counseled, schooled. I call it best practices. So much of what Charlie and Mufalo have been speaking to us about is about best practices, learning from their experience and dealing with this in large volumes with people in this situation. So we don't try to recreate the wheel. We're learning from the best practices that they've learned, that they're communicating with us. So Memorial Gym, we don't see as an option. There was a lot of criticism that there was a large number of people outside of the city office, either over the weekend, during the day. They weren't here at night. Monday at 5 o'clock, upwards of 60 people here. When they found that we could not house them for the night, they went outside. The phones came out, flipping through the phones, and then they dissipated and they were transported and gone back to their housing option. Right? So these are very resourceful, very intelligent people. They're learning the system, as we know. We've done anything and everything that we could to communicate with them in their native language. City has language interpretive services that we utilize, language linguistics that we utilize for those services, as well as we're seeking to get on-site translators here on the interim period until this slows itself for a period. But with those that are scheduled an appointment, we know they're coming in, we know what their language is, and we have interpreted services on speakerphone, and we're able to communicate with them directly and provide services as needed.
Okay, Jonathan?
So just to clarify, the people that have been hanging around outside City Hall for the last few days, they do have housing options? Is that what you're indicating?
I gave you the example of what took place on Monday.
Okay.
And I saw that. There were like 5 or 6 cars that all of a sudden pulled up. They all got in the cars, drove off.
I did see cars there with them the other day.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
But I'll give you another example. So in this room doing an assessment of who needed what with a Portuguese interpreter and such under that, one individual communicated that he had been picked up by a minister 2 days ago, was now dropped off, right? That connectivity had been broke between the first transport, then the minister. He didn't know what to do, right? Because before people dropped them off, they made a phone call, they picked back up and transported again, right? He had lost that connectivity because somebody was doing the right thing and was helping them out. He lost that connectivity. We had to spend a lot of additional time dealing with the logistics for that particular individual because of that circumstance.
Can you also explain why we're not getting a list of the places that are doing this transportation?
Just started to receive some of that information today, so I will
Will that
drill
be
down
made
on that. So
available?
I think the point is he doesn't want to accuse anybody and have people be upset with them and have them not be the right people. So he has to be careful legally.
No, I can understand
All right, any other questions here? Maura, any other questions? All right. I think some people here might have some questions, so we're going to try to do this in an orderly fashion. I'm going to have you stand in the middle of the aisle, and I will point to you, and then if you will say your name and where you are from, I would appreciate that. Oh,
Come to the podium.
you can come to the podium and introduce yourself. And just stand back and give him space, and then I'll call on the next person.
My name is Roland Cody, and I've lived in this town 80 years. And so I can always speak loud enough so everyone can hear every word that I say. Sometimes I say things and people don't like it and they resent it, but it makes me feel good based on my background. I want to thank the people here tonight for what they're doing and what they're going to be doing. I agree with it 100%, except I also have a part of my life. I think Sanford needs to be helped a lot more themselves. People are leaving Sanford, restaurants are moving, people can't get jobs. It goes on and on and on and on. So all I'm saying is, you people got a tremendous job ahead of you. There's no question about it. But there's a lot of people in Sanford and Springvale, senior citizens, can't get places, can't get jobs. People are moving out, doctors are moving out, are retiring, on and on and on. This is not a makeup, this is true. So all I'm saying is I want to thank the people. They've got a tremendous job. I just feel real bad that some people from Portland have been making people come to Sanford, Maine. You know, if you've lived here your whole life, you know many instances that Sanford's been taken advantage of and screwed by other people in the state of Maine. I don't want to go down that list. I'm just saying we have to be real careful to protect the people in Sanford as well. But I want to thank you people very much for what you're doing, but just don't forget the Sanford people.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you. And Steve, you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Cody, I just wanted, for point of clarification, the city of Portland is not sending their people here.
No, I heard everything you said.
Yeah, I just.
People are pushing them in. This has been going on for years.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm getting pretty sick of it.
Yeah, but it's not the city.
No, it's not, it's people who are pushing things to Sanford, and we need some help ourselves.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you. Please come to the mic and introduce yourself.
My name is Shakir Shabazz. I live here in the city of Sanford. It seemed like to me, if I heard you all correct, it seemed to me that you solved the problem, then you went back around it. If I heard Buck correct, he said that you can't receive service from both places. And when he had the interpreter in here, the interpreter asked them, had they been receiving services in other cities, and they all put their hands up. All right? So if they all put their hands up saying they received service in another city, then that's the reason right there for them to go back to where they came from. So that seems like to me that solves that issue right there. Now, if I heard the mayor correct, I believe I heard you say that that since they're here, we got to take care of them. And Buck made it clear about the law. That's what he's doing. He's got to do what the law says. If that's the case, then take every one of them back and bring them to Augusta and let Augusta deal with the situation. Because let me tell you something. You all haven't seen nothing yet. You're sitting back, being relaxed, do this, do that. Matter of fact, I know what you said now. You said that we're going to give them what they want now. And you're basically, you could kind of like overdo it by giving them things. And that's what you're doing. You made it worse for them. Because if they were doing okay where they were, and they were situated and have housing, apply for housing and everything else, and then you turn around and accept them here, you made them worse than if they were what they were doing. Because now, after 30 days come, you're going to put them back out in the streets or do whatever you're going to do. How much is it costing a day in a hotel for the taxpayers? How much is that costing? You're making it very clear about give them everything, do this, do that, pay them, put them in the schools, do all this stuff here. That's a lot of money on the city that the people here in the city can use, you know? So I disagree with a lot of things you all are doing about this issue. I really do. And if that's the case, they got public assistance in Portland, and they don't want to stay in the shelter there, and they're coming here and they're reapplying again. They're reapplying again.
Thank you for your comments. Steve, do you have anything you want to say about that?
Sure. So what I tell you my chief mission is, I'm going to keep the city out of legal harm's way for providing general assistance as required as a political subdivision of the state of Maine, period.
Yeah, I understand what you said there. I need it loud and clear.
Yep, so
What you said, if
nobody here made it worse. So you try to cross-check.
I'm talking about what you said. You said if they got assistance from somewhere else,
Yep.
they can't get it here.
So don't spend your time arguing with me.
I'll argue with you.
Let me give you the facts. There is no state allowance to have a cross-check system.
All right, I understand that.
That's a significant deficiency. You might want to talk to your state legislators about that and get that system corrected. Again, there's an indication that the majority of us use the same general assistance program, so it would be very easy to compile that database and share it, at least amongst those of us that have the same program. So when you're overstaffed and overwhelmed, and your GA director and his supporting staff does not have the time at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night to even call and check if there's a list. That will happen when they come back around in the following week. That check will occur.
Well, they're emptying the border next week. Getting a lot of people here, so you don't see that yet.
Thank you for your... Thank you. And Ann has a comment, if you want to listen to this.
I appreciate your frustration. I just wanted to clarify that we've had different waves of folks coming to our community. And so when a city manager referenced folks that shared that they had been housed previously, that was Monday. And those folks were not provided vouchers from our general assistance. They were asked to depart. So the folks that are currently in housing are folks that came earlier in the week. Some of them were placed late Friday evening when our general assistance office actually wasn't even open. And again, we potentially, maybe our mistake was doing too much at that point, but we were trying to house people then. And those are the folks that are in hotels that have vouchers that our city manager and his team are now trying to cross-reference if they are previously supported by another general assistance program. So there's different folks that we're talking about. I think there was a little confusion that we might have given vouchers to folks that admitted that they had already had services somewhere else. So I just want to be clear that we did not.
And thank you for asking that, because that way we could clarify that. That was a good question, because it did seem like it was the same group. So thank you very much. All right, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Debbie Randall, and I live in Springvale. I've been here for about 10 years, and I left a really good community to come down here to be with my grandchildren. My grandchildren are my concern, okay? You're letting them in our schools. Do they have all their vaccines that are required to get into our schools? Also, we just went through a pandemic. There's still a lot of people afraid. What have you done medically to make these people perfectly safe to be in our community? Because we sure had to run through hoops and loops for COVID. So my question to you is, have they been vaccinated to get into our schools? Because our children have to be.
Actually, not all of our children do have to be vaccinated.
They have to have a
be
certain reason. But let me answer
our
that for
school.
you. Legally, you guys cannot vaccinate these people because they are not U.S. citizens. And you can look that up anywhere. So for the people of Sanford and Springvale, there's your answer. Look it up for yourselves. It's right there on their website, government websites. You guys have a good day with all of this.
Thank you for your comments. Are you waiting to, because that's going to be hard for you.
You want to use the mic?
I just can't walk for it.
You want to come over here to this?
No, he's gonna,
No, it's all right.
he's gonna,
Everybody's asking where all this started, and I want to ask a question from the York County Community Action Corporation. Oh, Andre Bosolai. I live in Sanford. Been here 20-some-odd years. Evidently, Speaker of the House, Rachel Tabbitt Ross, came to Sanford a few weeks ago and met with the Nason Healthcare officials, along with representatives from Sanford Housing Authority, Sanford, Maine Police Department, York County Shelter Programs, and shared details of what's happening in Sanford. And the bottom line here says they thank her for taking time out of her busy schedule to learn more about Sanford. And I believe a week after this, all the asylum seekers came. So I would ask the board to write a letter to the speaker, because she does have a lot of power in Augusta, and ask her to write a check to help fund this. And, you know, Pete, like you said, my comment is, there for the grace of God go I. You know, I mean, I'll support them, I'll help them. And for everybody that wants to talk to these folks, they speak Portuguese. If you have an iPhone, you can download a translation app, and it works great. I've got one, it works great. Well, mine does. Maybe, Steve, maybe you gotta get a better one. That's all.
Yes.
We pay for a service that's $3.95 a minute because that app, when they speak Lingala, the Portuguese does not translate.
No, it's the wrong version. It's like Creole French versus regular French. Just so you know, I was at the meeting with our speaker, and it was actually the Sunday before, like literally last Sunday. And I believe one of my friends was the one who first met a family in the downtown, and it was either that same night or that next day. I do not think it has any correlation. While the topic was briefly discussed, and I understand. Well, it's actually a good thing for us.
Could you hold on a minute and let Maura finish, please?
It's a good thing because all the agencies that were there have projects in motion, and they, having the support of the Speaker's office is very important to them. Nassau Community Center desperately needs to expand their resources. As everybody knows, it's very difficult to get an appointment. The Sanford Housing Authority, as well as the shelter, are working on various housing options, especially for the Housing First, for those who are dealing with addiction and mental health, to get them housed so that they can better obtain services as they are ready to get help. They will at least not have that burden on them. So those were a large part of the conversations that we had. Although that was touched on because the York County Community Action had to increase or add a cultural coordinator. They were dealing with OOB and SACO in that conversation. It was very brief, so I do not think that is where it's coming from. I think it is just what is happening now. There are very few. No,
Hold on a second. No bantering back and forth. We have other people who
There are
want to
very
speak.
few housing options for everybody, and it's just what's happening today. So I don't think it has anything to do with any office over another. So.
Okay, one moment. We have somebody online. Charlie? Charlie, I see your hand up. Can you hear me? I can't see you at this point. There you go. Do we have...
Hi, me again. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in on the note of Augusta writing Sanford a check. There are some really positive bills in the current legislative session about some of which address that in some way. So currently the state government reimburses municipalities at, I believe I'm correct in saying, a rate of 70% for all general assistance expenditures. And there are some bills in the legislature right now, different ones sort of have it and different other things added on to increase that reimbursement rate to 90% for municipalities for all general assistance expenditures. So I would just encourage, if that's something that, you care about, just keep an eye on the state legislature. Maine Equal Justice is a nonprofit organization that does legal advocacy that has some really excellent guides for housing-related legislative efforts happening in Maine right now.
And to let you know, the Mayor's Coalition, which I'm a part of, we've already backed the bill to change it to 90%. And I imagine some of the business managers in Maine have also sent letters backing that and gone up to Augusta to speak, so that it would change from 70 to 90%. So in a sense, They are writing a check. So, it's a good point. All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Linda Murphy. I live in Springville. It seems to me that the real problem is whoever is soliciting these people and giving them the wrong impression. And I'm wondering, number one, if they're making money doing that. And number two, is there any way that they're working on finding out who it is that are dropping people off? Because there's no reason, if they've been told that there's no housing here, that for them to come unless they're told by somebody else, or they're just saying that. You know, and I can understand, well, you already said it, that they would want to believe that. So is there anybody or any organization, are they checking into who's bringing these folks down?
Steve, do you want to address that? I think you already did, but...
I received a couple of names today from a reliable resource, so we'll be checking into that. There was an individual that I saw on the Channel 6 News in the news last night and this morning that's been responsible for bringing people here.
Okay, so they are looking in that direction, so it can end.
Yeah, thank you, Linda.
All right.
Good point. I think you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to let others...
Name?
Yeah. My name's Connor Nugent, and I just wanted to let others go first because I'm from Kittery, just trying to understand this before it gets down to us there. And so it looks like everyone has. And so I just have a follow-up question to Ms. Murphy's, actually, which is obviously that it's these transporters and facilitators that are really creating the issue for us. I mean, there's the migrants, but that's the federal and state governments and Portland. So is there anything we can do to compel them to stop? Are they committing a crime, or is it just something about which nothing can be done except hope for the power of reason?
I think some of the people who are doing this are really doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. They're just misinformed. So I think they think we have hotels down here. It's better than sleeping on a gym floor. So I think there could be some people very well intended. I don't know how to get it to stop. Steve, do you have any ideas? I mean, just what Mafala told us was to do your capacity, but don't go beyond. And she even mentioned the point of do not allow them to sit on your steps because of your city hall. They will keep sitting on the steps of City Hall. So encourage them. They need to move on. And so those are the things that she said, do not make it easy because then they'll go from community to community. They need to go back to the place of origin where they are registered.
Right. So the question is, what's our legal means to
I think that's something your city's going to have to address with your city lawyer, which is what we are doing.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your forbearance.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I've been part of the conversation out in the parking lot with several, quote, DoorDash delivery people. It was less than comfortable for them, so they may not be doing DoorDash delivery of human beings into our community again. So thank you.
Jen, come on up.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Davey, citizen of Sanford, and wear a couple different hats. I'm on the school committee as well as work for the nonprofit Nassau Community Center, which is a partnering agency right now with the city providing the community kitchen for folks to prepare culturally appropriate meals. I just wanted to start out before I ask my question by saying thank you. I'm really incredibly impressed with the coordination of services. I know that there has been some frustration on all levels pertaining to maybe the speed of communication. However, I do think that people need to remember that people do need to sleep, eat, see their families. And so, remembering that people are doing the best that they can, I think is incredibly important. And I also just want to give a huge shout out to our police department. I don't think they're getting enough credit in the circumstance for the work that they've done, especially that first day and those first waves, and specifically that Friday night. I know they don't like to be in the spotlight, but I think it's important to recognize hard work, and I'm just really grateful for the kind souls that serve in that department. My question is this: as somebody who is a community partner, and I'm hearing the 5 weeks, potentially extended 7 to 10 days, kind of going along with what Jonathan is asking, I kind of got the gist, Jonathan, that you were asking, in the event that somebody loses their voucher because they are receiving a duplication of services, does that then mean if the hotel owner is still willing to rent that room, is it kind of like a queue? So I'm asking from the perspective of a community partner, are we keeping a kitchen set up for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or when these people all age out, and if a new wave comes in, are we continuing to keep that resource? And I'd also like to hear from Mufala from that and what she's seen in other communities pertaining to that general assistance kind of turnover, I guess you would call it. Thank you.
Steve, do you want me to call on you first, or Mufala?
Yeah, Jen, I really don't think I can answer that question. I just don't have that perspective yet. I think I'll have a better sense after our director starts processing the reoccurrence, right, to see how much longevity there is there as far as the people's continued qualification for general assistance. And then as the next steps, we thought we were going to have 5 weeks plus to plan out on that, but I think I'll know more on that as early as the end of this week when they start to reprocess. But we'll be in communication with you to let you know as soon as we get a better perspective. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Great questions. Mufala, do you want to comment on this? You're muted. Don't we just love those mute buttons?
All right. So what I want to speak about is, and I was telling the police this morning that this is going to happen for a while, and so when we say there are no more rooms here, folks will still continue to come. There's a cultural piece here of where, and I've said this in so many meetings that Americans are good people at heart, and they will not let you sleep outside. They'll not let you go hang hungry. That's the value. That's the American value, and so people all over the world know that, and so. When folks are coming, they know what you can do. If the state doesn't do that, they know that somebody in the community is going to do that. But what ends up happening in there is that when we say, okay, this is the way to go. This is how you learn. We had to go through, cultural learning. We had to learn the system here, where to use our communities to help us. So we are also trying to connect these new people to the communities that represent them. And so when people come and they'll line up and say they want to get a service here, if that service is finished, we should let that line up and say the service is finished. You can go. You can't come. You can't just stand there, because you will not be able to give them a room, no matter how long they stand there. But they'll be losing a spot somewhere. So we want, as we're telling people to say, keep your spot here. There are no more rooms there. We're trying to help them. So you help us too back, by really emphasizing that. And so in terms of people just lining up and sitting, people are staying there. They're not eating. Their children will need them. So we are also trying to provide support for them, back in where they are. So that's why we're saying that really, when you say, there is no more rooms here, let everybody in the town really work with us around that until there's another room somewhere. But if that happens, let that go through systems so that everything is being helped. They're being helped through systems and being supported through systems versus them just being in isolation with the community. And that's why we're trying to say, don't do something that outside from trying to make it comfortable, don't do something that makes it harder. So we're also trying to teach them and help them in the cultural piece of, this is what the process is here, and this is what the process is in this town and in this other town. And so I just wanted to speak to that so that we can help people to be safe, we can help the community as well to support them, and also just the municipality itself so that it can also learn how to support people who are from away.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And y'all heard her that for those people who are housing people separately from going through our general assistance, you are hurting the process. All right, the next person, please. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Maynard Campos. I moved here 14 or 15 years ago, but I came to the United States in 1999. When I moved here, I didn't speak English at all. I understand the people who are outside looking for help. And I hear the frustration of the people who live here. I know you're frustrated, but they're coming here, they're gonna get help, but they're gonna give back to the community. I've been living here, I work hard, and I'm giving back to the community. I have been part of the community theater. I have made people laugh before. I have given a lot to the community. And thank you so much for helping them. I know they're complaining, but you're doing a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name's Taisha. I heard quite a few times that you guys have resources that people were bringing like them here, not like the organizations, not the Vanfuls, but you have two specific people that went to Portland and brought people here. I'm sure if you go out, I don't know if you guys have, but when you put all of them in this room together, the question that should have been asked, how did you get here? And they'll tell you, because I have asked them, and they do tell me. They just say that people have dropped them off, but not people from this community. No one from this community has gone to another community where they're getting help and brought them here. Nobody did that. When these people, when I saw them at least, because I can admit I've been a big help, and because what I think is help, because I have a big heart, and it was very sad to come out and to see an 8-month-old, 9-month-old out in the sun, no food, no water, and getting no attention because their city hall is closed. As the community, I think all we were trying to do was to give those people a safe place, because you don't know what this world is like at night in a foreign place, in a place where they don't even speak our language, or they don't even know where to go. Probably very scared. Us as the community was just trying to give them a little bit of time to collect themselves together, just until you guys opened up to give us some answers. I think that was the biggest confusion here. So I don't want to say shame on you for the community for doing that, because that is, you did maybe, who knows, help them, give them a little bit of hope, and you showed them the love that the community here in America can give them. But yes, I do agree, it does hurt them a little bit because it shows them a lot of hope, and then look, they're back out on the street. I cried all night last night because my heart feels beyond belief for these people. And it is very sad, and I understand that the town of Sanford is very frustrated with them. Be patient, be kind, be welcoming, and just show them love. You would show the partner next to you. They're just like us. And all they want is love, and they just want to be shown a good life, because I can guarantee you a lot of them out there have lived a very rough life. And if we can't give them the answers, they need guidance. They don't need to be pushed. They don't need to be hated on. They need guidance. They need to be shown what to do next. And this is correct. You guys are doing that. You're getting it together, and thank you for that, and thank you for giving us the answers we need. And I apologize if anything has harmed their way, but I think I, or the community, have done an amazing job at least giving them a little bit of time while they're here.
Thank you for your comments, and you can see we even had to learn from this, and I'm so grateful for the people, who, Mafello and Charlie, who came on board, to help us understand how we were also hurting the whole situation. And I don't think anybody here was frustrated with the asylum seekers. I think we were frustrated with the people who were telling them from Portland without really checking in to find out what the resources were. And if they were here for 5-6 months even, we probably wouldn't have an apartment for them to move into. So no city could sustain them being in a hotel for that amount of time. So I just think that even though they might have been do-gooders and they meant well, we always need to do our research, which is what this past week gave us a chance as counselors to do that research. I appreciate your passion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Heidi Barker, and I was a outreach worker with the Sanford School Department for 3 years through the Safe Schools, grant that we had. It's been a while, and I've been retired for a while, but my passion for outreach has not changed at all. So while waiting to be connected to an agency, and I hope to be soon, I have gone to the hotels, and we have been meeting with the folks and speaking English with them. I wanted to just let you know what I've learned this week, and boy, I wouldn't want your jobs. Oh my God, I wouldn't want your jobs. But I have been assigned a pregnant woman, one of 5 that we have here, to take her to her appointments, and that's been wonderful. While I took her to Women's Health today, we talked, I'm sorry, I'm so bad at this. We talked about what does the community need, and this is the word that I'm using among the folks that are staying at the hotel. I've only been able to really help in one hotel, because the other one, everybody's indoors. These people, when they see me, come outside to talk to me. So we talked with the men today. I talked with them last night. The men are wonderful to talk with because it's very clear they've had the English language for a little while, which is very helpful to us because my Apple phone wears out with the interpretation app. But we've gone far with it, and I'm learning to do it really quickly now. But the men, their goal is to learn English. So how can we provide that for them? This is so important to them. But it's as important to them that they learn English as it is to me that their wives also learn English. So we're talking about bringing people to sit at the table and just sit there, and people can come to them if they want to speak English. And we've talked about it with different agencies, and we'll get together and, we'll be able to do that. That is huge for them. And then we talked about they need haircuts. So today, while my patient and I were out, we went to Walgreens and we got everything that the barber shop that we've assigned, we found a barber there. And we put him to work, and he'll have a sign out when he's ready to cut hair. He has all the things that he needs to cut hair, except an extension cord, so we'll figure that out. Because the buzzers have to come out of the room. And then my patient said, I braid hair. Can I get products and I'll braid the hair? And I said, well, you're going to go to the hospital in 2 weeks. Will you have somebody to braid hair for you? She said, I'll pick somebody. So she's picking somebody, and she'll have her sign up to braid hair. We found 3 women who I'll set up with Jen who want to take over the cooking for the community. They want to be the cooks. They've all offered their services, whether it's at the grill or whatever. But what I learned, when I worked for the schools, we did the backpack program. No, wait a minute. We did the what was it? The school supply, the Stop the Bus. And I haven't really worked with that group for a while, but I knew that they had a huge donation from Sanford Walmart last year of shoes, but they're all summer shoes. And what are we going to do with all these summer shoes? Well, guess what? We found a place to bring summer shoes. These people needed shoes. So it was a blast to bring the shoes. However, what I learned was, Heidi, you don't open your trunk, you get the elders to do it. Because the kids I learned. So now I'm speaking with the men and the women, and they've told me how to do it so it's successful without wearing out our resources. And we have had one church feed them a meal, which went over very well because it wasn't just a meal. Jen did some investigation on what would they like to eat, because we don't have African food, but she found a cultural recipe, and several of our friends put together this meal. So there are wonderful things that are going to happen for this community, but what I think is most important to share is that they want to be a community. They don't want to take away the resources from the town. They are proud people, and they have worked so hard to get here. So I don't know how long we'll be working to help them, but I think we should be really proud as a community, as our community, that there are people who want to do this, whose heart goes out to them, and who can see themselves in that same situation, always. So that's what I wanted to tell you tonight.
Heidi, thank you. Throughout the years, I've always been very impressed with your volunteer and the stuff that you've had such a heart for those people in need. So thank you. I think Ann has a comment.
And I, too, have had a chance to work with you, Heidi, and appreciate the depth and breadth of your heart and your desire to help people around you. One thing that I just want to share from a personal perspective is that Jeff and I also had the thought process of doing some cooking, and you mentioned there are some folks that are coming in to do cooking for the community. And I was cautioned myself, so I'm just sharing this, by Mufala and others, to be really careful about how much we do for people. And it might be something, because I know you're an educator at heart as well, where you're sharing skills about how to cook spaghetti that's something different and not in their cultural diet, or how to use a crock pot, or whatever it might be. But I think we just have to be careful about that balance of letting them be independent. And it's a tough balance, and there might be others that are able to better speak to this and work with you. But I just wanted to share that personal experience, and I was actually asked kind of to back off in a really nice way. I was asked to back off.
I have been staying in your lane, Heidi. Oh.
So we do have
Where
to
is it?
we just have to be careful, and that's that piece. And I think the term was where helping becomes a burden. We just have to be really careful.
And I understand that too. And we won't prolong this. But we had 3 days with only vouchers and no transportation. So we needed to bring some food. And it's not going to keep coming, because I know that you're going to come up with the answers to get them to where their resources are available. But where there are resources, we'll try to tap into them. But no way do we want to take over their meals. That we would not be able to do it.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? Are we all set?
I just want to know if they're safe, because I've seen people buy spring or crap at them. And I'm so ashamed of the people that do that. I was born here in St. People out there that I always respected and cared about, people I don't know. To another human being like that.
Let me.
Safe out there.
Thank you. And you're not at a mic, so I'm going to just repeat what you've said. She's very concerned about their safety. And fortunately, they're very close to the police department, which is working really well when they're right here. And the police department has been made aware to just kind of keep an eye on what's going on. And except for just right around here, I don't think that has been too much negativity that way for them. But thank you for your concern. That's really, yeah.
I was just out there, that was the first time I was shocked
Yeah.
at
Well,
what they were, people were screaming out.
well, I think by just,
They're so,
by speaking up, it lets people know that this is unacceptable behavior. So, thank you. And next time, it'd be great if you had the courage to come to the mic. Okay. Crystal, do you want to come to the mic, please? Because we can't hear you back there. Yeah, you gotta come to the mic. Come to the mic, Crystal. Come on, you can do it. I've got great faith in you. You can handle this. Just introduce who you are. Crystal, what's your...
I'm Crystal from Sanford. I just wanted to know when if there's going to be a work session and when it is, and if it's going to be open to the public.
Well, this is our work session.
This is the work session?
Yeah.
So there isn't going to be any sessions after tonight?
No, we might have it at some point on the agenda in the future, so you can just watch the agenda, and our agendas are always hooked to our website, so you know how to find them. So, and we could have something in the future where we're reporting out and stuff, so you're more than welcome to, even if you don't want to come in, you can go Zoom in, and you can ask your questions there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
It's the teacher in me. I can't help myself.
Sorry, it's just a quick question. Where they're preparing the food, if they need help, I'll be happy to help. I prepare food for them today. I didn't know. I came to them and asked them.
I think Jen Davies is the person
what do
right
they
here.
want to eat. They told me what they want to eat.
Yeah.
I speak a little bit Portuguese, so they communicate with me. So I went back home, and in 2 hours with my husband, we cook and bring them what they want. So
Curly hair girl right there.
Yeah, the cute
Okay,
little one right
perfect.
there.
So-
She's the contact.
perfect.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
And Community Gourmet is also an organization that creates bags of food that they deliver also, and I know they're involved in creating those bags. So any,
I'm just curious, what is going to happen to all of the people that are outside right now? So do they all just stay there?
no, most of the time, they take out their cell phones and they call their ride. Just hang around, you'll see it.
All right.
It happens.
All right.
Okay, I think that's the end of that. Now, this is an emergency meeting, and so it's a little unusual, but what we'll do is, we usually, if there are any counselor comments at this time, we'll take those. So, and then at the end, if there's any future agenda items, we'll put those on. So first, counselor comments. Anyone have a comment? Did I say you could have a couple?
No.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you. You have been keeping me informed, and I appreciate you very much. There's no transparency issue with you. I do want to comment to everybody that it was 9 days before we could have this information, but it was also 9 days to some of us counselors to sit down and really get a grasp on this. So we weren't just sitting around, we were waiting for meetings to come into. There's a state law that 3 counselors can be at a meeting, and if there's 4, you could actually break state law because you could kind of finagle for voting for anything, even tonight. So we had to be very careful on that, and we were waiting to find out emergency meeting if we could all be in the same room for this to go on. That was my biggest frustration when I got calls. I've had hundreds of calls, and my phone is always available, and that was the biggest frustration out of the fear of what is going on. You know, it was just the transparency or lack of, even for council. So that's my biggest complaint about all this. We can folks, we can do this. We can help asylum seekers physically responsible, financially responsible, and we can do this. This is America. But I understand your frustrations, and I just want you to know that that's okay, because you should have been frustrated. Any questions you have, please come up and ask. Don't hold back. Come up and ask. This is why we are here. Okay.
Thank you, Pete. Jonathan?
All right. I just wanted to second some of his comments. Thank you for putting out the information you had, and even when you were sick, and I hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
I would like to say that I spoke to some representatives in Augusta, and apparently the Mills administration has some details on these folks, but they haven't percolated that down to our representatives. So I think that that's not a good situation, and hopefully we can remedy some of that. But I appreciate putting the meeting together, and I'm glad we were able to get some more information and talk about this a little bit more, and I look forward to discussing some next steps. So,
Thank you, Jonathan. Anyone else?
Thank you very much, and I won't keep everyone too much longer. I know we all want to get home. I do want to say thank you to everyone that's been involved in the city to get this emergency situation going. As we've heard, we really weren't expecting any of this, and it sort of caught everyone by surprise. And so while I do share the same concerns that our city manager has mentioned about what's going to happen after those 30 days, what's going to happen long term. And I know that we're all here at the city going to be working hard to figure out what we can do in the interim. And I will encourage, if any of them are listening here today, for our state representatives and our federal representatives to show some support for us, because as we've learned today, we are bound by state law regarding general assistance, and seeking asylum is a federal process. And so I would encourage more involvement from those areas. The city is doing everything it can and then some, not to overwhelm ourselves, but we're doing everything we can. And again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. This is something it's come up as a surprise, but it's something that I think will ultimately work out given all of our efforts. So thank you.
Thank you. Maura?
Just comment that the 7 people who sit here, including Bob up on the television screen, we reflect the community more than you realize. The conversations that I have with Jonathan are very different from the conversations I have with Ann, and that's a good thing. So we reflect your community. We think of all the issues that you're concerned about, and we have discussions. Ultimately, though, I think we are Sanford residents. We are kind-hearted, as we all know. Many of us are grandchildren, probably are great-grandchildren of immigrants. My grandparents came from Canada. And the great thing about when they came, they got to move into a community of French-speaking Canadian Catholics. And that was a help. So keeping a community, as Heidi said, is very important as we look forward and ahead to welcoming our new asylum seekers to our community. I think it's important that we make sure that we help them stay a community, because it will make it so much easier to be here and to become the next wave of energy that we get into our community, because I like to think that the French Canadian Catholics brought a lot of energy to our community. Let's see how things go. It's rough in the beginning. It always is rough in the beginning, but I think we're a welcoming community in the end, and I'm proud of us in general. So thank you.
Thank you. Bob? Oh, I think you froze, Bob.
No, he's okay.
You're muted. Is he muted online? There you go.
Here I am.
There you go.
So I just wanted to back up to the comment on vaccinations, which I think is concerning and was never really answered. I'm not sure I have the absolutely correct answer, but I know based on what I've read that these individuals that are here in Sanford have been plugged into medical services, and I'm sure as part of the medical evaluations that will likely take place this vaccination piece will likely be taken care of. Also, the schools have policies, vaccination policies. School board has policies. And no, we can't, probably anywhere in the United States, force a parent to vaccinate their child. If they're not vaccinated, then they likely will not be allowed to attend school until they are properly vaccinated. And I'm talking about things like measles, chicken pox, those types of things. So we've all been through this with COVID, and who gets vaccinated, who doesn't, what the choice is. Okay, so the school has policies on this. So I don't think that we have to be concerned at all about some kind of illness being brought into our community or passed on to the school children by helping these individuals. The medical pieces are in place and the policies are in place to assure public safety, and I'm sure they'll continue to do that. So just want to say that. With regards to Pete's comment about the level of frustration, this wasn't just an emergency, it was a crisis, something that this community has never experienced before. I don't think there's anybody in municipal work on the municipal administration side, the general assistance people. Certainly, I don't believe any member of the council, including myself, has experienced anything like this. So, as I said earlier, hey, if mistakes were made, it appears that they were all made in the best interest of the humanity of the people involved. And so let's put those mistakes behind us. Let's figure out how to move this ahead, which is what we're doing with this meeting. Move this ahead in a positive way and make this a positive event in the long run from our community. We've heard great things about these individuals who are here. Great things, great positive things. And I think we should embrace that and embrace them. So thank you, Becky, for putting this meeting together. We should maybe compare notes on illnesses here. You seem to recover a little bit quicker than I have.
And we weren't together.
Anyways. So thank you, and thank you all, my fellow council members and the people in this community. Yeah, it's going to be a little frustrating, but as Pete said, we're going to get through this, and as people, we'll all be better off for having done this. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. I just have a few comments. My first one is a shout out to Randy White. What a phenomenal guy. He's the one who handled all our asylum seekers and the amount of work that he had to do, and it was just so impressive. So anybody who sees him, give him a hug. He really doesn't. So I'd give him one anyway. And the other thing is, there is Senator King and Susan Collins are both working towards changing the 180-day work requirement that you have to wait 180 days down to 30. So if you guys could write letters to whatever political group you are a part of in supporting that, the majority, I would say probably 100% of anyone who comes to our country wants to work. We also have a shortage of workers, so we could put people to work. So if you could write to anyone that you know on the federal level and tell them you are supporting this type of movement, that would really be appreciated. And before we go on, Steve, do you have a comment that you wanted to make?
I do. I'm going to try to gather my thoughts. So, I saw a lot of emotion tonight. I won't use the word anger. I'm going to use anger in a minute because it's me, right? For all of you that know me, I'm logistically based. This doesn't fit in a spreadsheet at all, so it tips my world upside down. But as I deal with the concerns, I call it my anger management program, right? I'm angry at the federal government. The borders are broke, right? But the individuals that we're dealing with didn't cross the border illegally. They're federally documented. They're immigrating. They're in the process, right? They're legally asylum seekers. So there's that. But there's a volume now that our country isn't able to handle, and that's the concern. We're at the tail end of that. That's where I get angry, and that's where I direct my anger towards. I don't understand when I come in the morning and I've got a voice box full of angry messaging from people that don't even live here, right? They didn't even, I've had 1 or 2 Sanford residents, but most of them are people that don't even live here, and they're directing their anger towards us, right, for doing something that they feel is not right. At the state level, I would urge you, so as we're dealing with this as a community, so I thank everybody for being here tonight, but we are dealing with this as a community. There's no choice at this point in time, right? So I would encourage you to talk to your state legislators, right? Don't let them live in a vacuum with what your concerns are around this, because the long session of the legislature is open right now. The 90% reimbursement is a significant piece that's there. There's other moving parts to that as well that will deal with administrative costs. That's part of the legislative process that's in there. I will tell you the difficulty. I could not get through to the governor's office today. It took 3 hours. 3 hours of drilling down on phone numbers that wouldn't answer to get any response out of DHHS. I have a meeting with them tomorrow morning by Teams, as you know, the Teams platform. I had to go through legislative aids today to get a response. So that's broke. So, as I've said before, sometimes the state of Maine is our most difficult partner. They don't do that well. We're political subdivisions, they tamp down and push down, and when it's time for the rubber to hit the road, they're out. So there's responsibilities there as well. We're calling upon those tomorrow. We'll take care of that. What tamps it down for me, though, is working with these individuals over the last couple of weeks, especially Friday, and I just have to commend, and I'm not going to list everybody that was here helping out on that on Friday, but the staff here and the public that was here, some counselors were here, was just incredible to see the response, and what got done in a very short period of time was truly fantastic. What made it better for me was getting to interact and meet these people. These are hardworking people. They've had incredibly difficult situations and circumstances to get here. If you don't think they're creative and highly intelligent, they wouldn't have gotten here at this point in time if they were not. So I grasped upon that, and just how universal children are. So dealing with the kids, one of our officers was at one point in time playing Baby Shark on the cell phone, right? Probably in my moment of stress, not exactly what I wanted to hear. But a young child, I'm going to say probably between 5 or 6 years old, was doing this and knew that song. I'm like, oh, as Americans, we've ruined the planet. This kid knows Baby Shark. So, so for me, dealing with the human side of this helps me deal with what's taking place here. But I would just encourage you, don't be silent. Call your senators at the federal level, call your representatives at the federal level, contact their offices, and do the same with your local representatives. It is important because many times for people in my positions, as a city manager, they hear me all of the time, right? But when you, the voters, speak to them, it has far more meaning. So I encourage you to contact them. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Are you?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, any future agenda items? Does anyone have anything, or your brain is dead right now?
The only thing I have during this crisis is 4 days a week for City Hall okay? Or is this not helping for a fifth day just for this crisis period? Does that help or hinder, Steve?
It would not have made a difference as far as the GA law is concerned. It's 24/7. So we do have dedicated staff that are here on Fridays, even though the forward-facing offices aren't open to the public. But we're maintaining. So you're mandated to have a 35-hour per week presence under the GA law. We're more than meeting that, right? So we're well over the 40. So we're open more days than what we need to be. So we're being compliant with the law. So.
All right, I was just making sure if we were overlooking something to better do the service. But it's not an issue for me. I just was seeking clarification from you on that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Jonathan, you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set. I think we've got a meeting next week, so.
Yeah, we do.
Probably have some items on that.
We have a lot of meetings. All right, I'll adjourn this meeting at 7:07.